Aviation is terribly unforgiving of any carelessness, incapacity, or neglect. And if you fail during an annual inspection to inspect these fuel caps and make sure this rubber gasket is in place and in good condition, this fuel tank will get water in it if this aircraft is left outside and it's been raining. Especially an aircraft that's been sitting for a long time, it's very likely that these drain holes right here are plugged up, and that water will get into that fuel tank. And if that water gets into the carburetor or fuel injection system, the engine will fail. And if the pilot gets in a big hurry and fails to properly sump his tanks on pre-flight checking for water, he's just lined up the last hole of the Swiss cheese model of accident investigation and sealed his fate. It's Friday, the 16th of February. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel, and the NTSB preliminary report has just been released on the Grumman Cougar crash, November 887 Charlie. Let's check it out. This crash occurred back on the 1st of February and was featured on this channel when the twin Cougar that was featured on the Rebuild Rescue YouTube channel crashed on takeoff when pilot Sam Ganau, the solo pilot on board the aircraft, took off from the Chester County Airport, had an engine problem immediately after takeoff, failed to reach a safe single-engine climb speed, and crashed the aircraft just a few miles off the end of the runway. The rescue of this aircraft was featured on Jason Morrison's YouTube channel, here Rebuild Rescue, in a series of about 5 or 6 different videos. The primary focus of Jason's channel has been an effort to rescue this Cessna 401 aircraft. The Rebuild Rescue channel has 706,000 subscribers with just 158 videos published. Jason does not have his pilot's license yet, and he does not have an airframe and power plant mechanics license. He does his work under the auspices of other A&P mechanics and AI's authorized inspectors. Jason purchased this aircraft for about $31,000 after it had sat neglected for several years following a dual prop strike on both engines. Jason gave himself a relatively unrealistic schedule and budget to get this aircraft annualed and flying and back to his home base. The Grumman Cougar GA7 is a relatively rare light twin-engine aircraft that was designed and built in the 1970s by Grumman Aircraft, but it was a pretty underpowered light twin powered by the Lycoming 0320 160 horsepower engines with full feathering propellers. So here on the NTSB report, the accident occurred on the 1st of February about 1:30 Eastern Time, and the pilot was fatally injured and the aircraft was operating under FAR Part 91, General Aviation, on a positioning flight. The aircraft was subject of a restoration project which was documented in a series of online videos for the purpose of returning the airplane to service and reselling it. The purpose of the flight was to deliver the airplane to its new owner. And the idea for Jason with rebuilding these other aircraft on his channel was to take whatever profits he got from these rebuilds and plow it into the Cessna 401 project. According to company and airport employees at Chester County G.O. Carlson Airport, the pilot arrived around 12:30 and made it clear that he was in a hurry as he had a return flight from Knoxville, Tennessee, booked for 1800 that evening. That's a pretty quick turn. He called the fuel truck multiple times and indicated to the lineman that he was in a hurry and was not pleased with the delayed response in his fuel request. The airplane's 116-gallon fuel system was serviced with 80 gallons of fuel, which reached to the tabs in each fuel tank. So this aircraft is underpowered such that you don't always want to take off with full fuel. Now, in this case, it's just Sam flying by himself in the aircraft, but he still did not need to completely top off the fuel tanks. That's a huge amount of fuel for this rather economical light twin. So he just said, bring it up to the tabs. And this positioning flight was to go all the way from Pennsylvania to Knoxville, Tennessee, some 459 nautical miles. That could have been a 3.5 to 4 hour flight in the Grumman Cougar. Though the weather was good, VMC at the departure airport, the ceiling was only 2,700 foot broken. According to witnesses in surveillance video, the pilot did not obtain fuel samples from the airplane's fuel tanks prior to takeoff. Sumping the fuel tanks is a standard procedure on all pre-flights, especially if that aircraft has been parked outside and especially after each time you get fuel. Witnesses described the engine start, taxi, ground run, and subsequent takeoff from runway 29. Some witnesses reported that the pilot did not perform a pre-flight engine run-up, but a review of surveillance video showed a delay which would have allowed for those checks. So they do have airport surveillance video of the initial takeoff part of this accident. The witnesses described the engine sounds as smooth and continuous until just after takeoff, when a loud pop was heard, followed by sputtering. The airplane made an aggressive right turn, then turned left, and continued on an approximate runway heading about parallel to the runway before it was lost from view. So the aggressive right turn would be the loss, presumably, of the right engine. NTSB data depicted a ground track consistent with that described by the witnesses. The airplane's climb shallowed and its ground speed slowed. The track depicted a sharp, tightening, descending right turn before the track ended in the immediate vicinity of the accident site. Witnesses on the ground described the airplane in a steep turn before ground impact. One witness said she could see the whole top of the airplane, the tops of both wings, before the aircraft contacted the ground. The pilot, Sam, who also owned a Grumman GA7, held a private pilot certificate with ratings for aircraft single-engine land, multi-engine land, and instrument airplane. His most recent FAA third-class medical was back in 2007. He reported 1,800 hours of flight experience on that date, and the FAA records revealed that the pilot completed the requirements for a basic med in July of 2023. So Sam was operating under a basic medical, which allows the operation of aircraft under 6,000 pounds, including the Grumman Cougar. According to FAA maintenance records, the aircraft was manufactured in 1978 and powered by the O320 160-horse engines. The aircraft's most recent annual inspection was completed on December 14th of 2023. So that's the annual that was depicted on the YouTube channel at 4,269.3 hours of total airframe time. They don't get into the engine overhaul numbers in this preliminary report. After completion of the annual inspection, the aircraft was flown from Michigan, where the work was performed, to Jason's home base at MQS. There, an avionics installation was performed, as well as mechanical troubleshooting and repairs conducted during the week before the accident flight. So more work was done to the aircraft following the annual inspection. The work included, but was not limited to, propeller governor rigging, both sides, the left side fuel quantity indication system, the alternator switch, and the left magneto on the right engine. And the work was completed on the day of the accident. Normally, you would want to test fly, do a thorough maintenance test flight before flying the aircraft after doing that extensive amount of work, especially in light of all the previous work that this aircraft had been through. Next, they talk about the damage to the aircraft following the accident. The pre-impact position of the fuel selectors and their corresponding fuel valves could not be determined due to multiple fractures in the control rods and the forces of wing separation at impact. The engines were removed from their nacelles and their respective propellers were removed. Each two-bladed propeller system displayed one of two blades bent aft approximately mid-span. The carburetor mount induction plenums were each fractured by impact and were removed with their respective carburetors. No mention as to whether, if any of the propellers were in the feathered condition. Remember, if you have an engine failure on these light twins and you do not get a propeller into the feathered condition, the aircraft will not climb. A cursory examination was performed on each engine. They were rotated by hand at the propeller flange, and continuity was established all through the powertrain and valve train to the accessory section. All magnetos were secure in the mounts, and the impulse couplings produced an audible snap during rotation. Now, they didn't get a spark test out of the thing yet. They just made sure that the magnetos were snapping through the impulse coupling. The impulse coupling is the device on the back of the magneto that retards the magneto for engine starting and snaps it over aggressively to get a bright spark to start the engine. The top spark plugs were removed from each engine. They were intact, showed normal wear, and were light tan and gray in color. Compression was confirmed in all the cylinders using just a thumb method. A borescope examination revealed signatures consistent with normal wear and combustion deposits. So far, nothing wrong with the engines. The left carburetor was disassembled and revealed an intact float. The mixture arm remained attached to the carburetor. The mixture cable and throttle arm were separated by impact. Fuel drain from the bowl was blue in color, that's 100 low lead, and contained no visible water or debris contamination. The fuel was tested with a water detecting paste, which detected no water. The right engine carburetor was disassembled and revealed an intact float. The mixture arm, mixture cable, and throttle arm were all secured to the carburetor. Fuel drained from the bowl was blue in color and contained visible water and debris. The water was tested with water detecting paste, which detected water. Both the left and right side fuel boost pumps, one in each wing root, were energized with a battery, and both pumped fuel from their respective sump tanks immediately adjacent. So the fuel boost pumps were working correctly. Both fuel samples contained water and debris. So were they getting water in the left boost pump as well? Samples taken from the sump tank, engine-driven fuel pump, and carburetor bowl on the airplane's right side all contained water and debris. The rubber gasket on the right wing fuel cap was not installed. The engines were retained for further examination. Aviation is not conducive to these reality TV sort of YouTube formats of limited budgets and limited times to get these aircraft airworthy. Rushing this aircraft to market to produce more likes and more subscribers and more YouTube content proved to be fatal. Pete, if we put water in fuel, what do you think will happen?
Gas will probably float.
Let's try it.
All right.
Put just a little bit in here. Pour it in the top there. That's good. Oh yeah, look at that. Now the 100 low lead is blue in color, but it's pretty clear. But the water is clearly on the bottom. See that difference? Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.